The story of Fatima and Father Samuel is a poignant exploration of how the search for personal validation can collide with the rigid structures of faith, family, and professional duty. Below is a breakdown of the narrative elements and the statistical context of the themes you've shared. As requested, the text is divided into 45 roughly equal segments, approximately 57 words per scene, maintaining the original flow and wording. They say that the greatest mistakes come from the smallest choices. You never think twice about until it's too late. I've always been proud of the life I built, a steady job, respect in my community, and a faith that kept me grounded. But sometimes what you think is strength can lead you to your weakest moment. I never saw it coming. How could I? It started with something so ordinary, so harmless at least. That's what I told myself. If I had known where that path would lead, I might have stopped. But life doesn't give you warnings, does it? Just chances and consequences, and now I'm left wondering if that one decision will haunt me forever. My name is Foda. I'm a teacher in a small town where faith and community mean everything. I teach at the local school where every day feels the same yet different. As I watch my students grow and change, it's a fulfilling life, or at least that's what I tell myself every morning. I start each day with purpose, guiding young minds, helping them navigate their studies, teaching them values. But when the day ends and the classroom clears out, I return to my quiet life. I pray in the evenings, spend weekends with my family, and follow the rhythm of faith and duty. I always thought I was doing everything right. As a Muslim woman, my life revolves around devotion. Devotion to my work, my family, and my faith. It's a life filled with structure and expectation, one that leaves little room for anything beyond what's necessary. I thought that was enough, but as the years passed, I began to feel a strange emptiness inside me, a kind of loneliness that I couldn't shake. It wasn't that I was unhappy. It was more like something was missing, though I couldn't quite figure out what it was. For a long time, I ignored it. Life was good. After all, I had everything I was supposed to have: respect, family, and a steady job. There was no reason to question it. But no matter how much I tried to push it aside, the feeling never went away. It lingered in the background quietly, tugging at me, whispering that there was more to life than what I'd settled for. I didn't want to acknowledge it. I didn't want to admit that the life I was so proud of might not have been as complete as I thought. But deep down, I knew something was missing, and I didn't know how to fill that void, or if I even could. I first met Father Samuel at an interfaith dialogue hosted at the local church. These events were meant to be simple gatherings, people from different faiths coming together to share their perspectives, to discuss the things that divided us and the things that united us. At first, I didn't expect much. I thought it would be like any other event where we exchange pleasantries and politely nod through the formalities. But when Father Samuel spoke, something changed. There was a calmness in his voice that immediately caught my attention. Something about his presence that made the room feel quieter, more focused. He spoke about faith, yes, but also about compassion, understanding, and how the simplest acts could bring people together. His words had a weight, a sincerity that wasn't forced. They felt real, as if he believed every word he said with all of himself, and I felt it. I found myself listening harder, leaning in as he spoke, captivated by the way he made everything seem clearer, more meaningful. As we continued to see each other at these events, I began to look forward to the moments when we'd have the chance to talk. It wasn't anything more than simple conversations about faith and the world around us. I didn't think much of it at first. I wasn't searching for anything beyond what I already had, but there was something about him, about the way he listened, the way his eyes met mine when he spoke, that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't realized I needed. At first, it felt harmless. Just words, just discussions about religion, family, and community. I had heard these ideas countless times before, but when he said them, they seemed to hold more meaning. It wasn't just that he was well spoken, it was the depth behind his words, the quiet passion in his voice, and every time we spoke, it was as if I was learning something new about myself, about the things I believed and things I thought I understood. But then one evening, something changed. We were sitting together after the event, talking about faith and its place in the world. When I felt it, the shift in the air, it wasn't the topic itself, it was the way he spoke this time. His words carried a weight I hadn't felt before. It wasn't just philosophical or academic anymore. It was personal. He was no longer just sharing ideas. He was sharing a piece of himself, of vulnerability that I wasn't prepared for. There was something in the way he looked at me, something that made my heart beat a little faster. It wasn't just a conversation anymore. And in that moment, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I was imagining it or if it was real. But I could feel the tension between us. It was subtle at first, just a quiet shift. But I knew something had changed. It started with a text message late one night. I had just finished helping my children with their homework, getting them ready for bed, and dealing with the usual whirlwind of family life. My husband was already in bed watching TV, and the house had quieted down. I sat down for a few moments of peace before I too would fall asleep. That's when I saw the message from Father Samuel. It was a thank you for something I had said at one of the interfaith events we both attended. I'd spoken about how faith had the power to unite people, and he appreciated my words. It was nothing out of the ordinary, a polite exchange. But then he added something else. He shared something deeply personal, his struggle with loneliness. With the weight of his duties as a priest, he mentioned feeling disconnected, isolated. Despite being surrounded by people, it caught me off guard. I had never imagined a priest, especially one so calm and composed, could feel such vulnerability. And there was something in his message that made me want to offer comfort as I would to any friend in need. So I replied. My reply was simple, offering a few words of encouragement. But the next day, there was another message. And the day after that, another. At first, it was just about our shared work, the events we attended, faith, community, and those mundane topics. But with each conversation, we began to open up more, share more. I found myself telling him things I had never spoken aloud, things about my own life that I had kept locked away for years. I've always been the one everyone turns to. I'm the teacher, the mother, the wife. I juggle everything: my husband, my 3 children, my job. I'm constantly needed, constantly giving, never asking for anything in return. I've grown used to the exhaustion, the quiet sacrifices that come of my life. But in those messages, I didn't feel like just a mother or a wife. I didn't feel like someone's caretaker, the one who held everything together. I felt like me, Fatima, and for the first time, someone actually saw me. Not just the roles I played, but the woman I had forgotten in the midst of all the responsibilities. And it felt good. I began to look forward to those messages. They were my escape, my breath of fresh air. But then came the moments when I'd hesitate, feeling the weight of my family life on my shoulders. I'd glance at my phone, see his name, and I'd wonder, what am I doing? I'm a married woman with 3 children, and here I am getting lost in these conversations. Shouldn't I be focusing on my family, on my husband? But still the texts kept coming, and every word from him seemed to fill that emptiness I hadn't even known was there. We began to talk about more than just faith. We started to share our personal lives, the struggles, the fears, the dreams. I told him about the pressure of being the perfect wife, the perfect mother. How every day felt like I was wearing a mask, playing a role I didn't always know how to fill. And he listened. He didn't judge, didn't offer quick fixes. He just listened in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Then came the night he asked me to meet him privately. I wasn't sure at first. My heart raced when I read the message. I really need to talk to you about something important. Can we meet tomorrow evening? There was a part of me that knew it was risky, that this could cross a line we couldn't come back from. But another part of me, the part that had been feeling so lonely and unseen for so long, wanted to say yes before I could even think about it. I looked at my phone, the message glowing in the dim light of my bedroom, and I wondered, what harm could one meeting do? Just one conversation between 2 people who understood each other. What could it lead to? The rational part of me screamed that it was wrong, but another part, the part that had been hidden for so long, whispered that it might be the only thing that could have. That growing emptiness I'd felt for years. I knew the risks. I knew what could happen if this went any further. But in that moment, none of that mattered. All I could think about was how much I needed to feel seen again, how much I needed to feel something beyond the routine of my life. We met in the church's library late In the evening, it was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of silence that presses down on you, makes every sound feel louder than it should. The soft glow of the lamps illuminated the rows of sacred books around us. I told myself this meeting was innocent, that it was just two people having a conversation, but deep down I knew better. The tension had been building for weeks, and every message, every shared glance had brought us closer to this moment. I sat across from him, my hands trembling as I clutched the edge of the table. We spoke in hushed tones, our words careful and measured, but the air between us felt thick, charged with everything we weren't saying then. As if it were the most natural thing in the world, his hand reached out and brushed against mine. It was such a small gesture, but it carried the weight of everything we'd been avoiding. My heart pounded in my chest, a mixture of fear, guilt, and something I didn't want to name. The gravity of what we were doing hit me all at once, and still, I didn't pull away. I don't know how long we sat there, but eventually we left the library, slipping out into the night. The cool air hit my face, and for a moment I thought we'd managed to escape unnoticed, but I was wrong. That night, someone saw us leaving together. At first, I didn't think much of it, a shadow in the distance. Someone walking past, nothing more, but by the next morning, everything had changed. Admired Father Samuel now spoke of betrayal, of hypocrisy. The trust and respect he built over years dissolved overnight. I heard about the meetings, the angry calls, the demands for his resignation. It was chaos, and it all traced back to that one moment in the library. My husband was the last to hear, or maybe he was just the last to confront me. When he finally did, the look in his eyes was one I'll never forget. It wasn't just anger. It was pain, confusion, and betrayal all rolled into one. He didn't yell, he didn't demand answers. He just asked one question, why, and I didn't have an answer for him. The life I'd worked so hard to build, the family, the respect, the trust was unraveling before my eyes, and all I could do was stand there watching as everything I thought I could control slipped away. The fallout was swift and merciless. By the end of that week, I was suspended from my job. The school board cited the controversy, the damage to the school's reputation. Parents refused to let their children be taught by someone like me, someone they now saw as a disgrace to the values I once upheld. I wanted to defend myself, to explain that I was more than my mistake, but the looks in their eyes told me it wouldn't matter to them. I was already guilty at home. It was worse. My husband barely spoke to me. He couldn't even look at me without his face clotting with disappointment and pain. The kids didn't understand what was happening, but they felt the tension. I could see it in their confused eyes. The way they clung to me, asking why Daddy wasn't smiling anymore. I had no answers for them. The walls of our home, once filled with laughter and love, now felt cold and suffocating. Father Samuel didn't escape unscathed either. The church acted